Hey, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on your time zone. And welcome to another week and episode of Industry Chats by Affixify. So, I'm your host, Jasmine Saliga, and I'm also the founder of Affixify. This is my favorite part of the week, to be honest. This is the time every single Wednesday where I carve out a few minutes, about 30 minutes, to talk to anyone in our network that we feel can bring incredible value. If you're new to Industry Chats, we're a live show every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central. We actually don't charge anyone to be on the show because we have a strong stance of being unbiased. And so anything you hear today is just absolute expert education. And we're so excited. Amy, you're also our 49th guest. So welcome to my friend, Amy Infante, the CEO of GetGo Group. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. It's so great to be here with you. I love chatting with you, Jasmine. It's great.
Every time we do a phone chat or our prayer group, we could talk forever. So when I saw that you were on the schedule next, I'm like, oh, Amy and I will talk. We don't even need a pre-show, we'll talk so easily. But Amy, you are, I say this sometimes to our guests, and you 100% are in this category. I don't feel that you really need an intro just with all of your amazing reach within hospitality, but let's go ahead and do an intro and tell us a little bit about GetGo. And you have so many things, amazing things going on. So give us a little bit of an overview of what's going on in Amy's world before we jump in.
Sure. Thank you. Well, honestly, I think GetGo is a lot behind the scenes. So you might be surprised at how many people don't know the GetGo name. I feel like I'm always having great introductions to new people that didn't realize that we might have been the team behind the scenes of something that they were attached to in one shape or form. And so GetGo, our main area of expertise is commercial execution. And so my GetGo team is really well versed in the sales and business development aspect in particular. We bring in a lot of, I say, top of funnel marketing, and we sit specifically in the B2B space. So if you are a hotel management company, brand, chain, or a property, even, we work with independents and branded properties alike, and you have a gap in your sales team organization, GetGo might be the team that can assist you with that. But really what we love to do is design new programs that are revenue generating programs. And we've done that from brand level with, multi-million dollar, even close to billion-dollar programs, to management company level, like larger portfolios, and then individual properties. And as you can imagine, what comes with that a lot is advisory.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I'm really enjoying right now is the advisory work that I personally get to do, both with my GAIN connections, so growth advisors. I'm part of GAIN, and I really enjoy that. And I get to work on all kinds of interesting projects there. And then a lot of times our GetGo partners who are reaching out really for like a specific need, they think like, oh, got this tactic we need to execute in sales. We need a new business development program. It's usually a lot bigger than that, a lot more strategic than that. And they need some advisory on how to actually build that program so it's sustainable, whether it's outsourced or brought in-house. And so those are the fun projects that I love to work on.
I love it. It's so inspiring. And plus that you're like speaking and traveling and you're super mom. So you definitely, I bond with you in this area of like working mom, but you're so very present with, your family. So I think it's amazing.
Thanks. I try to be. That's not always the easiest, right? Like, I think it's fun to like share the highlight reels on social media, but we both know the reality of what that looks like.
You and I were like texting last night, that's just how it goes. And I get it. I love that you do it so well and with grace, and it helps encourage me. So, and I just truly what you guys offer to hotel sales, I think is so invaluable. And myself, so I'm not a hotelier, but even as a tech founder, I have called Amy in a couple of one particular SOS situation, and I'm like, I need your expertise, and because you have so much knowledge and you help me so much. And so just for, any of our guests or audience today or watching on YouTube, like there's something to be said for somebody that's been kind of on the inner workings of that hotel sales team and commercial side. I think you do so much, and yeah, it's probably hidden more than I even realized, but a lot of times, that's what's needed. You roll up your sleeves and you and your team do the work that maybe not everybody sees. But I want to talk today, and I loved kind of your take. So we always let our guests dictate the topic and things like that, because we don't want to tell you what to talk about, but talking a little bit about why, hotel sales fail and why it's not a talent issue. And we put that in the title because I think a lot of times, having been in the tech side of VP of sales myself, a lot of time the finger gets pointed at the person versus lack of process, strategy, things like that. So tell me a little bit about, like, when you walk into a struggling project and things seem to be stalled and these sales efforts are just not working, whether it's, the near $1 billion account or a smaller management company, what do you typically identify that they don't have? And it's not probably not the talent side. So what is your first step in that to diagnose?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think, if I look at it from a property level perspective, like we put so much rigor into the investment and really planning out and forecasting what that investment should produce for the owner. But then once we get to the reality of execution around the commercial side of things, it seems to fall apart in some ways. And a lot of that is because what I see happening is we invest in a headcount, a salesperson or a sales team.
Right.
We don't always factor in the technology, the resources, and really the systems that it takes for that team to execute and be successful. And so you can have the most talented person in the world. And back in the day when I first started GetGo, I used to talk a lot about rainmakers. Like, rainmakers do not exist. I'm so sorry to burst that bubble. But there's something to be said about building strategic relationships, right? Absolutely. We need that. And I talk about that a lot. And I see a lot of social media influencers talking about that on LinkedIn, how important it is. And I think that gets ignored quite a bit because there's so much that salespeople can be doing in terms of building great relationships and showing up on LinkedIn and social media and doing those things. But the reality is they're not taking the time to do that because they don't have the systems in place to ensure that they can be consistent with that and with the inbound, the reactive, which, by the way, is, we all know that's going to be going away to a certain degree because of, the new technology that we have. So we've got to catch up with building out the systems and the processes that the team needs to be successful. And that's why I say it's not necessarily a talent issue. But when I work with a property or a management company or a brand, we take time for a discovery phase. And, it's hard. You and I are both experts, right? We want to get to the vision as fast as possible. And I know a lot of my partners in the industry are very much built the same with that mentality. Like, let's just get going. Like, what's taking so long? But you've got to take that time for the discovery to really get to the root. Because what keeps happening is we're sort of just using Band-Aid solutions and placing nickel bets on things over and over. And it creates this doom loop of we're not really getting to the root cause. We're not really, tackling what needs to happen to be successful and to make sure that this talent is supported.
Oh, that's very powerful. Well, and I think it's interesting you say that because a lot of times, and I mean, LinkedIn is for my company, like 90% of our leads inbound come from LinkedIn, and that's saying something, right? So it is important, but you're right. I think the lack of structure, the only way like a LinkedIn strategy works is if you are consistent over time, to your point. But if you don't have the tools to even make time for that because you're focused on other things, it's never going to work. It's just going to be like random posts here and there. And then likewise, right? Like whatever type of prospecting tools and pipeline building. So when you're identifying those things, and you said in the pre-notes, which I love, but talking about a true commercial operating system. So tying all these things together, the strategy, pipeline, accountability. Do you find that most people do not have that? And then you implement that framework, or what's your experience doing this for so long?
Yeah, like I said, I find that a lot of, at least from, the get-go perspective, a lot of customers sort of self-diagnose, we've
Mm,
got a pipeline issue, and they'll
yeah.
reach out and say, here's the issue, it's our pipeline. And
Mm,
as we start to really dive in, we could be really like, it's not necessarily a pipeline issue. You've got enough leads coming in, it's a conversion issue. And
yeah.
what tools and assets do we have, and what training does the team have? There's all kinds of things to actually be able to convert those
Yeah.
opportunities into real business.
Mm,
The other thing I find is the patience
yeah.
of the pipeline getting to conversion, and making sure, like, a lot of companies come to us when they maybe haven't had a real sales and marketing system in place for
Mm,
many years. Even they don't have a CRM, they don't have a team in place, or they've had a lag in that.
yeah.
And so they're like, we need to move from building the pipeline and having engagement and awareness being built to booked revenue. And I
Yeah.
get that sense of urgency, probably more than most. Like, as a business owner, you and I, we understand cash flow and
Right.
the necessity there. But there's the reality is you're living in the results of the things you did 90 days ago, even in
Yes.
some cases 6 months ago. And so
Mm,
it's not a light switch, and we need to have the patience to see a process through and to make sure that it's consistent, so that over time you can see your property or your organization not have to rely on that
right.
immediate inbound only, that we've
Mm.
all built our own pipeline and we've nurtured that pipeline correctly, and we have relationships built from that we can then convert.
So you said something that really stuck out. I don't know, have you ever read the book Fanatical Prospecting? Are you
I
familiar with
have
that
I
book?
have read little snippets through the years, but I've never that's probably my, a bad trait of mine is I'm not one that finishes a book all the way through. I like find little bits and pieces.
I have the same trait. I'm reading that book right now, and so when you said this, because I am trying really hard to read the whole thing,
It's
um, it's hard, but he talks about that exact thing, and so what you said just, like, rang a bell, and hopefully anyone watching this will is he gives the example of a guy, it's like March, end of March, and he calls, Jeb, the author, "I need help. I'm not making, nothing's coming through." And he said, "What were you doing in December?" Well, it was Christmas, and I took a couple weeks off with my family, and like what we all do. And then he said, "You're literally living in the decisions you made 90 days ago, and so everything you did 90 days ago will pay off or will not." So you saying that, I'm like, yes. And it doesn't really matter. You correct me if I'm wrong. If you're selling for a hotel, you're selling room blocks, or you're selling technology, or you're whatever it is. What we do and choose to do today will have an impact, in the next 90 days. And the good part of that is if someone like you can come in and create a process around it, I'm sure that makes that empowers, people to make that so much simpler.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we had a customer come to us at a point where they really were struggling, with their pipeline, and they really wanted to kind of enter into a new category of business. They wanted to
Yeah.
become a larger group, and meetings house, and they're set up perfectly for that. But the challenge was their sales team was just reacting to inbound, and
Yeah.
they're also servicing their own events. So a lot of noise and not a lot of time spent scheduled around prospecting. But the thing is, like, this is the catch I always find with property level sales is we're expecting our sellers to do all of this heavy lifting work. And don't get me wrong, picking up the phone is important,
Yeah.
but doing that in today's world out of the gate without any warm leads and
Right.
really nurturing a top of funnel system is going to take even longer,
Yeah.
right? For that salesperson to close business from a cold call. And so part of the system that we helped them create was an email campaign, and taking pieces from their overall commercial strategy, because they have very good leisure business and great leisure marketing and a great funnel there and an in-house guest list, all kinds of good stuff to work with. Like, they had the meat there, but they weren't executing it from a B2B perspective. And so making sure that that's in place, because if you're just relying on your sellers and harping on them, prospect more, prospect more, prospect more, it's probably not going to happen. It's ugly, messy work to begin with. And you can hear a lot of no's on the phone if you're doing that without something that really warms and nurtures the ideal customers ahead of time. And a lot of times I see hotels just like basically handing them a list and saying, just get busy, just make calls. And there's no time taken to research that those are the right ideal customers. And there's no, kind of warm touches before that. And so you're asking a salesperson to call somebody out of the blue. Would you take that as a leader? Would you take that call?
No. Yeah.
I probably wouldn't. So we're trying to create a better system that allows that salesperson to feel successful and be successful and do what they do best, which is really building relationships.
I love it. Well, and in hospitality too, because I think it is so different. And we actually have another sales expert here. Hi, Corey. Thank you for joining us today. And so talk to me, Amy. I really like what you said about, we're looking a lot as these sales teams are looking at activity. You hear a lot about activity, calls, meetings, cold calls, whatever. But you mentioned you try to shift to like behaviors that are actually revenue producing. So if you come in, give us an example or two of like what's a revenue producing behavior versus what's just an activity. So you're checking a box when you walk out the door at 5 p.m.
The reality is a lot of customers that come to us, they don't have any key metrics that they're really looking at. Mostly, owners or some even management companies, they're not sure what to make their sales team do for activity that really matters. And I say, don't give up on activity. Those can be indicators, right? But it's more about quality conversations that they're having, quality engagement, and are they spending their time really making sure they know that customer before they get on the phone and they're asking the right questions and really getting to know that piece of business. And so I know Corey would love this. I would love to see more property level leaders looking at LinkedIn and social engagement and making some kind of a metric around that for their sellers. I know a lot of people are afraid of that because they're like, well, they're going to promote themselves. They're not going to promote the property. And then what if they leave? Historically, we've had a lot of turnover in sales in the industry, but I just really feel like you've got to think about how the customers are buying. It's not about you. And there's a whole book on that too, The Go-Giver, if you want to read that. It's about how you're serving your market, how you're serving your audience. And if that's where they're at and that's how they're buying, we also need to be using video and there's just so
Yeah.
much you can be looking at in terms of activity. And I don't like to prescribe on podcasts and calls like this, like do this, this, and this, because every property and every organization has their own
Sure.
culture. And that's one of the other things, we talked about, like, how do you like pinpoint to the root cause? Like the last thing I want to do is come into an organization and try to make massive change to culture and the way they do things. So what I try to do is meet teams where they're at,
Right.
help them make that shift and change over time. And some of it can be really quick, and it can make a huge difference right away, and you see the numbers change. And then others has to be a bit more gradual.
Mm. Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting. And you said something else in the notes. I have another question too, kind of organically, but I'm going to start with this. Tell me a little bit about like a cohesive team, because you mentioned that when everybody's all hands on deck and everybody's aligned, that's when you see the top performing, right? And what's interesting about you saying that is that when I had Lavelle Casero on here just a few weeks ago, and she was the SVP of commercial for a long time at PM Hotels, and she said similar, but she said the best properties, the properties that outperformed everybody else, were the ones where the GM was involved or would sit in sales meetings and really like played a part and wasn't hands off. And so then you said, alignment and all of these things. So clearly, if the experts are saying this, I'm very curious on what does that look like? What does alignment look like? And obviously it would pay off. So does that make sense? I want to hear.
Yeah, totally. Actually, so I'll put a little plug in at the HSMAI Commercial Strategy Conference. I'm facilitating a workshop, and it is around commercial execution.
Okay.
So we talk a lot about alignment in our industry and commercial strategy and bringing everyone to the table with the same goals and everything. But the reality that I'm hearing from a lot of organizations is it gets stuck in the execution piece, because we have a great strategy on paper. We have great ideas and we know what we want to do. We know like the end result, obviously, but executing it on the day-to-day, operationalizing that is where we get stuck. And so it's about, identifying the key metrics that the organization really needs to be aligned to, and who is responsible for those. We're going to literally walk through a process called CORE that I use with our customers and within GetGo, so that we can help and teams can actually walk away with executable tactics that they can take in-house, and without changing their whole like structure, org chart, all of that, but like literally saying, these are our 5 to 7 KPIs that as a commercial organization we need to measure against. And by the way, we also are going to talk about where do we bring operations into those discussions and how and when, because I agree with Lavelle, the GMs that are engaged in this commercial process and strategy and that are, kind of the cheerleaders and the ambassadors for this, they perform better because they're also they're engaged in ensuring that it's executable on the operational level, right? Because what if commercial is saying, oh, we want to do this promotion, right? Like on a very tactical level, we want to push this out. Like, can operations actually execute that? What could be the issues, right? That could occur for the property to actually execute it. And that's all things that we have to consider. And so we're going to get really like in the weeds. It's going to be fun. We've got a whole like very, very hands-on process that we're going to go through in a 90-minute workshop for teams that are attending. Yeah.
I have FOMO. I will not be on the HSMAI side just because I'm so embedded with, high tech and now helping with E20X, but I am thinking next year I need to come. This sounds so amazing. And I think, if you're attending, you guys have to go to this session. This is brilliant. Plus, it's like from someone like you, I mean, you're going to be able to offer so much. So that's just, that's a no brainer. And we also just have an interactive comment as we're going. Thank you, Corey. But nothing can deflate your team faster than having them hit the phones without a warm up strategy. And I can say I've learned from experts like you and Corey, like no longer are the days I was taught in my early sales days, like use LinkedIn. And now I think we call it pitch slapping, where you don't do that. You do not do that. You don't just, like you said, would I take that call or that meeting? Like there has to be a warm up. So 100% agree on that. And Amy, one last question. Like I said, it flies when we talk. I can't believe we're at 25 minutes, but I'm curious, and I didn't really prompt you for this, but how does, I have to ask, how does tech play into this? So I don't think from our conversations that you're ever, tell me if I'm wrong, like you're not going in with a plan to change all their tech. You're going in to see what they have, right? And then add tools where needed. I mean, tell me a little bit about that, because we get lots of techies on this, in our audience. So
in a lot of cases, so I have a really recent story, and I'm going to be kind of vague because I keep my customers close to the vest, like for privacy. I don't think they want me like shouting out everything that's going on to the universe. But very recently had a large organization come to me, and they wanted to design how they go to market with their sales organization. And one of the key missing ingredients was having all of these different divisions on the same tech CRM system. And so first things first, after interviewing everybody and understanding what systems they had in place and the processes they were using, we identified a tech tool that they could all adopt.
Oh, good.
And we're in the midst of actually launching that and rolling it out right now. So a lot of what I do with the advisory is project management as well, where it's not just like telling you what to do and then go do it, but actually helping you through the entire process, both with the culture and managing the change throughout it. But yes, tech is a huge part, especially today, of what we do, whether it's from the get-go side or from advisory. From a get-go standpoint, one of the nice things is we have the technology already embedded with our team. And so if a hotel is missing that technology, they can use it by engaging get-go. Some of our partners, though, one in particular, what we're trying to do is actually teach them as we execute and work with leadership so that they can adopt their own system internally over time and bring that all in-house. So we're not necessarily looking always at like, oh, we want to be your long-term, you have to outsource this forever, because let's face it, not every company has the stomach for that. Some of them, and then some are absolutely like, absolutely do not want anything to do with this. Please just handle it and take care of it for us. So it's a mix. And tech, we're not there to change the face of everything, but to, like I said, meet you where you're at and try to adopt the things that we know are going to possibly even save money, or save, in being able to execute more efficiently, because there's a part of that a lot of people, it's not just the dollars, but it's also the savings in efficiency. So there's a lot of different lenses you have to look at it from. And sometimes it's, a very quick process, and other times it just depends on the temperament of the organization, right? And what leadership is really needing at that time. I've had organizations come to me and be like, we need a mass change and a shift, and we've got to do this in the next 6 months. And then others are like, okay, it's too much. It's too much, Amy, slow down. And then we, take a breather and look at it differently. So
it does. It always depends. And which might surprise some, considering Affixify is all based on helping people research technology. But I actually always say, and like a week ago, I sent one of our users a message, and, they're a large hotel operation and they were looking for something in particular. And my first question I actually said was like, I know your PMS specifically, because I happen to know this system, and I'm almost positive they can also do what you're looking for. So you might go to them first, and I think that
Mhm.
that's how we have to take that stance, because regardless of what the outcome ends up being, like if you're already paying for something, I'm the first to say, or if you have something you can work within those bounds and not have to add another tech item to the list for a team to learn, great. But then there's also, of course, times where it's absolutely necessary, and we got to adopt tools that are going to help us be successful.
Like, I agree. It's about mitigating risk,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
organizations, the risk is really heavy in today's world because margins are tight. And if you can help an organization mitigate risk by adopting the things that matter and doing it in a smart way that isn't tragic to a
Yeah.
huge change in the organization,
Mhm.
that's a really big deal right now. I think
Yeah.
every single leader I talk to is looking to minimize the risk to the
Mhm.
organization, which that is their job.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you had said something in a post. I think about it all the time. I'm going to get it wrong, but I loved it. And you basically said money is fuel. So, like, what I think is important about that is when necessary to make an investment, if it's going to have a return, help productivity, help keep track of, whatever it is in your world. But if it's an investment in tech, but it's fuel that's going to, keep the engine running, then I think it's absolutely necessary. I also think we have to balance that with, is this money being spent that's not going to fuel anything because we want the coolest, latest new tool, And I mean, I think we have to, there's different people, different decision makers out there that take different approaches. So,
It's the choices are abundant, right, of
yeah.
which direction we can go, and sometimes that leads to the paralysis.
Yeah.
And I think, like, that's a lot of times too what my clients look to me for is to kind
Yeah.
of get out of that paralysis mode and
Yeah.
make the right decision that's
Mhm.
the least amount of risk. But there's so many choices, and you've got to have, it's okay to raise your hand and ask for help in that, because I do it within my own organization. Like, I'm not sitting here making every decision on my own. Like, I reach out to ask for help a lot, and I know you do too. And I think that's important.
Yeah, always have. Never too far along to ask for help. That's for sure. And we had another great comment. So Caleb said he's looking forward to your session. So I'm so excited that you're going to have. It's going to be amazing. So Amy, this as always has been such a joy. I feel like we could keep talking
I know.
easily, but tell us. So obviously, if you guys, you're watching live or on YouTube later, and you're thinking, I would really like to talk to GetGo or talk to Amy about advisory, you can find her through Affixify. So she's under our consultants, agents, and advisors category. If you're not set up on Affixify, reach out to me. We'll get you set up, and you can really evaluate what her firm does and reach out to her there. But Amy, if someone just wants to follow along your journey, or maybe say, hey, I want to meet you at the conference in a few weeks, where's the best place to do that?
Absolutely. Well, you can always email me directly at amyi@getgogroup.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn and message me there. It's Amy Infante -still. Those are probably the two easiest ways to connect.
I love it. Well, Amy, thank you so much for being here. And for those that watch live, we appreciate you. We will be back next week. Next week is our 50th episode. I cannot believe it. And we'll have Dragonfly strategist on with us. Carol, the CEO, is going to talk to us about high tech prep. So, if you're a hotelier, vendor, consultant, what you should be doing ahead of San Antonio. So, join us next Wednesday as well. And again, Amy's episode will be up on our YouTube within the week. Amy, such a joy and an honor to have you. And I'll see you in just a few weeks at High Tech.
Yes. Thanks, Jasmine.
Thanks, guys. See you guys next week.